To help with the track building, I've devised 3 jigs, which allows you to build a number of links at the same time and to make sure everything's aligned. So we have a jig 1. There's enough parts to build 2 of these in case you get glue on it or bugger it up. So that's jig 1. That's jig 2. That's jig 3. So we're going to do jig 1 first of all. So that's the one we're going to build now. In fact, I've put the parts in that will allow 2 jigs to be built because it gets used a lot. If you damage it, you can use the second one. So what I'll do is I'll just take this one apart and show you how we build the jig. So those are the parts we're looking for. Yep, you can see those, that's all right. I'll zoom in a little bit. Right, so probably best to build this one with a PVA glue. Right, so hopefully you can see what I'm actually doing. So we take this one first. He goes in on the end there like that. So that's the first one I'm going to put in. So a bit of glue. On the tang. That goes into that position there. And that one goes in the other end. Like that. And then the ones with the small cutout go into that location there and sit right down inside. So I'm going to put just a little bit on there and a little bit on each end. So make sure that is really pushed down firmly and remove any excess glue because that will get in the way otherwise. And we do the same with this one. So I shan't use quite so much glue. And these go at the very end. Again, a little bit of glue. And this one goes at this end. So that's our jig made up. And this is what we're going to be making. So out of this bag of 500 odd bits, take out a few straight edges, as I call them. Doesn't matter how many for the moment. And the other part you're going to need is, I will show it to you because there are 2 similar parts in here. The part you're going to need is the one that's got the lump, as you can see there, and not that one. So that's a no-no. So that's the ones we need first of all. So grab yourself a cup of coffee. Right, having built your jig, the next part is to start to use it. Now, to keep things looking symmetrical, what we do is we take one strip. You can see there's a clean a black, a dirty, a black. So we go with the dirty side facing up. We take one with the notch on and we put it into the dirty side about halfway along, as you can see there. We then take another one with a notch, and this time we put the clean sides together like that. And we take another straight edge, we feed that in and position it roughly halfway along. Then we drop that into the jig, and it's fairly obvious how it goes. And when it's in correctly, that will sit down firmly. The two longs will go into the half cuts, and the length is set by the two end pieces. You then have to add a very small amount of super glue just to the top, otherwise you'll end up gluing it to the jig. Just to the top. I'll show you a closer view of that. So I've just done it on the top surface. And then using a screwdriver or something suitable, just flick it out, as I've done there. And gently put that to one side. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So let's do another one. So the dirty side up into the dirty side there. Take a clean one to clean, about halfway along. Take another one, feed him in, drop him into the jig, manoeuvre the straight bits backwards and forwards until it drops down in. Spot of super glue just on the top surface. Prise him out gently. I'll do one more and then I'll show you what we do after that. So into there, white to white into there. Add another one into the jig. Bit of super glue. And then prise him out. So once the super glue's gone off, right, now we're going to build jig 2 and then jig 3. So we'll move 3 out of the way for the moment. So this is what we're going to build. So you need to find the parts. They are similar, both jigs, but this one is a smaller version of the larger version. So it's important which way round things go on this because of the way the laser actually cuts the wood. So you need the base with the 8 holes, and you need it with the grubby side facing up. And then these, which look like bits of fencing, have to go in with the clean side facing out, and the small pins go into the bottom, like that. This one exactly the same. Clean side facing out, pins into the bottom. And this piece, again, you have a grubby side and a clean side. You want the grubby side, and that drops in between the fences. Now this is the tricky bit. You need to push down on the centre one and pull in on the fence posts either side, so they're up at a good 90 degrees. And then we have to glue those in position. So we use the ever faithful super glue. Now to glue these, we'll do it in a number of stages. So first thing is to just run some along that edge there and there. Be quite liberal with the glue, and then just put some on the end face there. Hold that for a couple of seconds for the glue to go off. And wipe any excess off. You're happy it's gone off, turn it round and repeat the process at the other end. Building the track is still tedious, but this does help speed it up and make sure everything is aligned. Right, so then turn that upside down, and then applying some pressure to make sure all the pins are engaged. Just add some super glue. Again, give it a wipe. And now where each pin comes through, so you've got the pin there, so apply a little bit of super glue just to the outside edge. Do that on the other one. And then we do the same on the inside. And put that aside to dry. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we will now build the other jig, which is absolutely identical but is much larger. So if you like to source those parts, so we have a big one, flat piece, a bigger fence piece, a bigger fence piece, and this is what we're going to build. So it's the same process. Dirty side facing up. Fence posts, you want the clean side facing out, and we put the small pins in. Clean face out, small pins down. And the centre part, dirty face facing up. Drop him in. Line him up. So now push down and squeeze in the outers. Happy the glue's dry, turn them over, apply some pressure to the rear, again same as on the smaller version. And put that one aside to dry. So important that both those jigs are allowed to dry thoroughly, or 3 jigs are allowed to dry thoroughly. Whereas when you come to build up the actual links, you'll find it glue itself together. Right, now on jig number 2, which is the smaller one, which is the first one we're going to use, first thing you can do is just put a slight chamfer on those pins. So this is best done once it's built. It's become obvious why we have to do this in a minute. I'll show you a close-up in a minute of how much I've done. Just using an 80 grit ordinary sandpaper here. So if I bring it up into view, you can see the slight chamfer I've put. Right, so we'll now move on to constructing the first part of the track. So I've already covered the actual construction using the first jig of these. So if you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those. That's the ones which are round holes and have an indent notch on the end, and a small jig. So first of all, we build, how to explain this, let's do 2 at a time, then you can see what we're going to do. So take 2 with the notch facing up, as you can see, so the notch is up. And then we slide these. To keep it uniform, we've got a dirty side and a clean side. I would go the dirty side facing out. And we slide him over like that. And then we do the same with the one on the other side. So I'll just bring a close view of that so you can see what I've actually done. So that should be fairly straightforward, what I've actually constructed there. And then we repeat that for the next one. So again, absolutely identical. Slide one on. And slide one on. Bring the next one in. Remembering to keep dirty side is always facing out. And the last one. Well, the last one of this batch anyway. Right, make sure they're all pulled in. Again, I'll bring this up so you can have a close view of what I've done. So the camera comes into focus. There we go. Right, now what we're going to do is we're going to load this now into the jig. Now the way the jig works is each pin there, which I'm pointing to, where that pin there has to go up where I'm pointing there. So I'll put them down and we'll zoom in and you'll be able to see what I'm doing. This is why we have a chamfer on there. So we start off pushing him down. You can see that the pin. Let's bring that up to you again in focus so you can see exactly how I push that in. So that holds that nice and tight in the middle. We're now going to slip over each end the little rings that hold it together. So it's important that when you look down, that this particular pin sticking up here is central in each case. So we've got a little gap each side. And then we take our round one with a square hole in it. And again, we've got a clean side and a dirty side. I would put, it slides on much easier. We start off at this end here. I would go the clean side, the dirty side in, because it does go on a lot easier. And then you slide that. And you slide it all the way along. You may have to use a small pair of pliers to help. Some are loose fit and some are tight fit. I'm just looking for my pliers at the moment, which I seem to have mislaid. There we are. So in my case, that one's a bit tight perhaps, so I'll just bring it up. There we are. So just take them along and just, there we are, ease it along. And then take your next one. Right, there we are. Load him on. Again, you may have to help it with a pair of pliers. And next. And so on. So we go all the way down one side, and then we do exactly the same on the other side. So I'll just do that, but I won't hold it up in front of the camera. So I'll just run through that now, and then I'll show you what we do next. Some are loose, some are tight. Some don't want to go at all. So that's that one side done. And I do the other side. Some of these have got the square bit still in them. I just want it popping out. Try not to squeeze these too tight because they will deform and break. There's plenty of spares in there though. If for any reason you run out, drop me an email and I'll send you off a bag full. push all those onto the pliers. Right, now we come to the gluing stage. And this is where you have to be very careful and use the runny super glue. And I've found the actual best thing to use now is the end of a pin. What we have to do, bring it up into focus again, we have to put a spot of super glue on the end, just where I'm pointing there, and there, and there, and there, all the way along on each of the roundels we've just put on. And then we do exactly the same on the other side. So try and do it away from that part, so it's that area, and then that area, and so on. So we just put a small amount of glue into there. So I'll just do one now. So you can see it wicks in. So we go all the way along on each of those. Let me turn it round, making sure they're still all pushed down in. And do exactly the same on this side. And we leave that for about 30 seconds to dry. So we'll wait for that to dry. And then we gently lift it off of the jig. Hopefully you haven't glued it on. Maybe a tight fit. So that comes off of that jig. Now it's always good to make sure that each one still rotates. If you've accidentally glued one up, then obviously you can cut it out and replace it. So we're happy with that. So we now move on to the second jig. Now this one's a bit different to put on. We need to put it on so that, I can explain this, there's a right way and a wrong way, you see. So let's bring it up so you can see what we're doing. We need to put it, there we are. Now I can put it so that if I move it along one, you will find that it will go, but it's very, very tight, as you can see. There. So that's gone tight. Okay, that's not the right way to do it. Okay, so we don't want it tight, we want it loose. So we need to go, take him off again and come along. So you can see now we have a gap between each of them. So there's a bit of movement and there should be a bit of movement sideways. So the next stage is to add the end caps on. So for those you need to fit these, and we fit 3 at a time on each side. Make sure the bits are punched out the holes. Right, so what we do is make sure that we put the right one on the right one. So we need to find the lumpy one, which is that one there. And that's the one we need to put the end cap on. So I tend to put it dirty side facing in. So the one with the lump on is the end cap. Slide him over. And then we do exactly the same on its opposite side. And slide him over and squeeze. Now when you squeeze together, if it's offset, you'll see the pins stick through, but the other side, they're not sticking through. So if you put your fingers either side and just squeeze, you'll find that it will self-center and those will push in on the jig. So that's the position we want. Again, double check, link, bump, link. And then with that held in that position, we can then add the next one. So again, slide him on and squeeze. And then number 3. And squeeze. So that's those 3 links. Now we've got to glue them in position. So one finger underneath on the side, and while you're squeezing, where we have to glue is, again, we have to be careful here. We want some glue in there and in there and in there and in there, but obviously not on the jig. And then you do that for each one. So again, I found the pin works exceptionally well. So again, squeezing. And move on to the next one. And the last one. Again, make sure it's pushed down, double check each one. Right, now we have to add some glue to the outside. So where they're poking through, just a touch of glue on the outside. And remove the excess. And turn them over and we do the other side. Wait a few seconds for that to dry. And again, gently lift it up off the jig and double check we still have movement on all the joints. They may be a bit stiff, It is wood running in wood. So that completes those links. So if we now move on, I'll just show you how now we add that section to the next section. So it's back to the small jig and some more of these. So we add another 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So we add another 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, we get our links. Not forgetting to make sure the kick is facing up. Oh, I forgot to put that one on. So that's those 4 done. So we then take the small jig and we need to position it. Let's take him over a little bit. There we are. So we need again to position this one in the right place. So you can see how I've got it there. So we pick him up and we load him down in. This time it's not quite so easy because you've got the other links at the other end still on there. Push down. And now we can add our circles again. Make sure they're all pushed up firmly. With the glue again. Now we've done the end one there, so this is the next ones to do. And spin him round and do the other side. Give that a little bit of time to dry. 10 seconds again. And then lift them off. Do a check. We can rotate everything. We move on to the next jig, which is fitting the big ones on the outside. So as before, we want to fit those on the big gaps. So when he's in, we've got some movement. In fact, probably going to be best to put him there, I would think. because if we put him in that position, when I can't squeeze because I don't have a post there. So that's really the location it wants to go in. And we take our end pieces again. If we've done the first lot right, then we can't go wrong, but double check. You've got the notch sticking up. So that one goes on there. That one goes on that side. And I've now run out of the straight pieces. So bear with me while I get some more straight pieces out. I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Push out the square holes. As before, load him on. And then a squeeze all the way along. We're keeping downward pressure. You should find that they're all a smooth. You'll find they're a smooth flush finish on the outside. So like we did before, remembering which ones we've done. So we've done that one, so this is the one we need to do. So a bit of glue on the inside. Double check. And then tilt him slightly so we can add some to the outside. Quick rub down with the tissue. Over to the other side. And then lift him up off the jig. And check that those are done. So we can just do one more on the end there. So again, back into the jig. So we can do that pair. Can't do that pair yet because we haven't added the other section on. So squeeze tight, flush. Remove excess and pop him out the jig. And check that we can rotate. That's a bit tight. There we go. So there's a bit more of the track done. Now you can do these in sections. Makes it a bit easier to maneuver. So when you've got a few sections like that, you want to join them together. And here's one that I've done already, which is a lot longer already. So I'm going to join those to the end there. So we use the same principle for joining up. So we will need 2 with the bumps in. So again, bring them together, slide over. We now have to load this part into the jig. So that's the small jig. And as before, the actual pins. So if we go down to there, pins there want to go where the actual pieces are to hold them in. So on we go. And again, make sure that the pin sticking up is halfway between the bars. So we add a couple more of these, the round pieces. Just glue those 2 in. I can remember which 2 it was. I can't, so I'll do them all. You've got glue on. So wait a while for that to go off. And take him out the jig. Again, double check, got movement. We can now put him into the next jig. Again, bearing in mind where it's going to go. So that's how we want it. So the lump lines up with a gap. So we come across and down. And then we want some square ones. I'm going to want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slide them on. Again, making sure that you're putting where the notches, the bump is where the 2 outer ones go on. And then we can lift that one out the jig. Again, we make sure each one rotates and it's slowly coming together. Right, I've now finished both my tracks. The number of links is 40. Now when I say links, what I mean is the actual, this piece on the end, you want to have 40 of those, but when you build it, we've obviously got to finally assemble it on the actual tank itself. So what you need to do is to assemble 39 links and leave the last one, as I've demonstrated here. I'll just bring it up and show you. You can see exactly what I've done. That's how the last link is done. As you can see, it's ready to be pushed in. Then we'll put another pin across and put the 40th link in. So that last one there will make 40. So take a note of how we've got to finish off each end. So I'll just hold that so you can take a note of how it's got to be finished. and then we can actually start to assemble it on the tank itself, which is the next exercise. So we'll do one side at a time. So it's best to do this with the tank actually upside down, which I'm going to have a bit of a problem with because of my gun barrel, but we'll see what happens. Right, so what we'll do is we'll work on this side over here. I'll just chalk up my turret a moment so it doesn't fall over. Right, so what we're going to do is, it's also important which way round the track goes. The actual track has these bumps on one side and it's completely smooth on the other. The bumps want to go inside. So in fact, if we were to join it, which I'll just demonstrate here. Right, so if that's the track, then you can see the bumps are on the inside. So the first job then is to feed it through. Sort of lower it down into the mudguard area and then pull it through. It's a tight fit on the front sprocket. As you pull through, it will rotate all the sprockets. You want to get it to a point where it's about halfway, as you can see there. Now the other thing to bear in mind is it's also important how the actual sprocket engages on the chain itself or on the track. So I'll turn it sideways, so again I can demonstrate this to you. Now the sprocket, as you can see, could go one of two places. It could either go there or it can go there. Now the big gap between the teeth is how that goes there. That is correct. So that's the way to do the front. The rear is the same principle. Again, you can go the long one, which is like that, as you can see, but what it needs to be is the actual link there wants to go again between the teeth, as I demonstrated there. So bear that in mind. So I've now set up my chain correctly that end and is correct that end. So holding it on the sprocket, I'm going to turn him over. And then I'll just wedge my tank again. So what I have to do now is to pull these two together and push a pin through. Now you've got to pull quite a lot, but it's quite spongy because it's wood, and wood is quite flexible. If for any reason it won't come together, the chances are you don't actually have it engaged in the sprocket correctly, either at the front or the rear. So we've got that ready to go there. So we sort out the parts we're going to need. There's plenty of spares should you lose any parts. So the first thing I'm going to do is to run an axle and lock that all in. So we go through the outer one first. I say this is not an easy exercise. I'm also trying to do it while I'm filming. So I'll just take that one link out of the way. Bear in mind that what we're going to go into is a square hole. Push him in. He's starting to come out the other side. So bring the other link up and carry on pushing until you flush all the way down there. So that's that track linked in. Can't use a jig on this one, so we then use one of our little round ferrules. We slide that on and slide the one on the other side. And like we did before, again check that we're parallel or flush on the outside. We're just going to put a bit of super glue on there. So just a little bit, as we did before when we were building the tracks. The other one we'd already done. So give that a few seconds to go off. And then take the outer link and slide him on. Now you can, because we don't have a jig, it is possible to push this on too far. So just gently do it until we've got a flush surface on the outside. Same with this one on this side. Then use the other ones as a guide. And then if you're happy in that position, we can then glue that one in. And then some glue on the outside. And give that time to go off. So that's one track done. It will be a floppy track because in reality it ran with the track resting on the top. You should be able to gently rotate it, but bearing in mind this is more of a static kit than an actual running kit. That seems to be moving all right. So we can now move over and do exactly the same on the other one. Which I will go ahead and do. So again, bearing in mind that we need the ribs on the inside. So we're going to feed this through underneath the sprocket at the front. And then as we turn the sprocket, it's going to be a slow job. It's easier than doing it on the real thing. Trust me, I've been there and done that. And it's going quite nicely. Nearly halfway. Well, I think that's close enough. Right, so we're now going to reach the point where we can actually pull this together. But like on the other side, what we must check is that the sprocket is engaged in the correct part of the track. So we just turn over and check that. without throwing it on the floor. So as you can see, we have a tooth. So there's a tooth there. The next tooth is there. So that part is in the widest section, so that's correct. And we'll just check the rear. And again, we have a tooth, and that's going to go into there. So that's correct as well. But it should be correct because the other side was correct, and the wheels are tied to each other because there's no differential, and we did set the alignment up so the sprockets lined up with each other. Didn't you? Let's hope you did. Right, so as we did before on the other one, just put my glasses on. So we have a pin ready. Now we're going to pull the two together. So we'll put a pin in the first round one first of all. We'll move the other one out of the way and then pull it until it goes into the square. Have to wiggle it around a little bit and then bring the other the other one with the hole in down. Have to push him back a little bit and then push him through. I'm going to take some of the tension off the track to do this. There we go. And identical to doing the other side, make sure that it's lined up with the other one that's there. And then we put on our little circular bits that holds it in location. And squeeze those up. I'm just going to add a little bit of super glue there. That one, or was it that one? I can't remember. So what I'll do is I'll play safe and I'll add some to the other one as well, but not that much. Right, give that a few seconds to go off. And then we'll add our links on the outside. Then push it on until it lines up with the existing links there. Just take some of that glue away. Give that a few seconds to dry. And we should be able to now turn both sets of tracks. So if I turn this one, and we have movement on the other one as well. How well it actually turns, I don't know, because you've got to remember this is wood. Don't really want to push it too far. Right, I'll just bring the camera down so you can actually see what we've got. Okay, right, well, there's our Tiger 1 tank. What more can you say? It's been quite a joy to do some of the redesigning, and it's been immense fun. Well, we've got a bit of slop on the tracks, which is brilliant. Yeah, really pleased. Whether it will actually... No, it's slipping a little bit. It'll probably go on the carpet though, I would imagine. So we'll just give that a go. Right, so just continue turning it round. So you've got rear exhaust system. Sorry, it's a bit jumpy, but I'm holding the camera and rotating the tank at the same time. And obviously the turret rotates. But as I demonstrated in the video, the barrel is fixed. So let's see if it will push along. Will actually push along. And I think the answer to that is yes. It's a bit sticky, but then it is wood, so we must expect these things. So there we have. Our finished Tiger 1 MDF laser cut tank. I hope you have as much enjoyment as I have in building. The number of parts is well into the over 1,000. The tracks themselves is 960 parts for both tracks. And I'm guessing there's probably 100, 150 parts for the rest. So you're looking at 1,100, 1,200 parts in total. Thank you very much.